Welcome back to Evil Kitty Music Presents. All right, welcome back. We've made it to episode 5. Hopefully you liked those last 2 episodes where we talked about music that you must own, and you've been listening to Powder and Praxis, and you're all psyched and thinking, wow, my life has more meaning and much joy in it because of this great music. And you can just let me know in the comments how happy you are about my music selections, and if you like those kind of episodes and we should do more in the future. I think we're going to do more in the future because I have a bunch of other albums I want to talk about. Today we're going to go back to what started it all, though, and talk about some technique and how I use that technique in my songwriting. And we're going to talk about a track called Breakdown that I wrote the music for a band I put together in Texas called LED.
So we are LED. It means something different for everybody, darling.
But before we get into the song itself, I want to talk about the technique. And the technique is two-hand tapping. And that's where you're going to use both hands to create a rhythm on the guitar. Primarily, it's used for lead guitar playing, and when we think about tapping, we pretty much begin and end with the late, the great, the legend, Edward Van Halen. Now, Eddie didn't invent this technique, but I believe he perfected it, and he brought it to the mainstream masses in the rock guitar world. When he first debuted Van Halen 1 with the guitar instrumental that is still played on radio stations today, and he played it live up until his passing. Of course, I'm talking about the track Eruption. I know that wasn't the cleanest version. There's better out there, but honestly, two-handed technique is not my specialty. A lot of people think I use it a lot on my solos. I really don't, believe it or not. I use a lot of single-hand tapping, but not a lot of double. And I respect everybody who can play that. It's a difficult piece to play, but you get the idea. That's Eruption by Eddie Van Halen. And once he put that out into the world, it changed the landscape of guitar. And he's not the only guitar player to put that technique into play. Not long after Eddie, the great Randy Rhoads, in his solo for Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train, also used a very similar technique and pattern. Other artists would also add this technique to their vocabulary, but put their own unique spins on it. In Joe Satriani's epic work, Surfing with the Alien, he uses a tapping technique, but rather than using the tip of his finger to do the tapping, he uses the side of his pick on the 22nd fret of the high E string and puts together a picking pattern that sounds a bit like this. So I just said I don't really use it in my lead playing, but I also said that I use this technique to help write music for a song. Both are true. I was reading a guitar article with guitarist Kerry King of Slayer, of all people, who was talking about using lead techniques to write rhythms for verses or actually song parts for the rhythm section. And I think he was actually talking about tapping sections, which I thought was very interesting. So I kind of processed that and took it back and I decided to see what I could come up with. And what I came up with was the opening riff and the verse riff to a song that would later be called Breakdown when Mike Manzer penned the lyrics. And that song goes a little like this. So in that video, you saw singer-songwriter Michael Manzer with me, along with an amazing bass player named Chip Core, who was living in the Dallas area at the time. The drummer in the video is the late Brian Hogan. Unfortunately, he passed shortly after that show. Now, in the actual audio recording, it's not Brian on the drums. It's Michigan native Sean Hasbrook, who is now currently a super fan of the Austin FC football club and can be seen playing drums live for their shows. So I wish them all the best. They're a bunch of great people, great musicians, and I was fortunate enough to get to work and play with them. So on to the technique I used for the opening riff and the what would become the verse of the song. I buried the lead. I told you it's a tapping technique, right? But instead of using a single finger tapping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two fingers to tap. And it's going to be on the 11th frets of the D and the G strings. And it's going to stay there the entire time. Now, while I'm doing that, I'm going to be changing the pattern with my left hand. And it's going to be based on the 7th and 9th frets, again, of the D and the G. So I'm going to start by just barring the 7th fret of the D and the G, and then using my ring finger on the 9th fret of the D. So what you have is 9 on the D, 7 on the G, and of course tapping on the 11th with the other two. And what you end up getting is something that sounds like this. For the second section, you're just going to pick up that ring finger, so now you're still on the 11th fret tapping, but now it's going to be the 7th fret of those, the D and the G. Then it goes back to the original pattern, so you're going to put your ring finger back on the 9th fret of the D. And finally, you're going to move the ring finger from the D to the G's on the 9th fret. So now you're going to have the 7th fret of the D, the 9th fret of the G, and of course tapping on the 11th. So when you put the whole pattern together, you get... Now for the chorus section, we're going to go to a distortion guitar, and it's really going to be based around a couple of chords. It's going to be really based on a B and an A, but what I'm doing is I'm adding a G. So what you're going to get is a B-A-B, A-G-A. So it's like... Now what I'm doing is when I'm hitting that final A chord, I do add some flair every time through on either the fourth or the second or open frets of the D and G, or I'm playing off the open 7th and 9th frets of the D and the G. And what I'm doing is I'm adding a bunch of vibrato and dive bomb effects to it. So it's like... And that's your chorus section. Finally, we'll talk about the lead, the solo section. I'm going to play it for you quick, just so you can kind of hear it. And then I'm going to go over a section and talk about the influences, as well as what influenced the chorus I just showed you. So enjoy this clip. Okay, let's break down part of the solo. That I think there's a certain section of the solo that really encapsulates what I was trying to do with it. And that section goes like this. Goes something like that. Now, there's like 3 sections there. The first section I call the happy accident. If you listen to it, it's like a note followed by a plink, then a note and a plink. It's like... And what happened there when I was originally playing the solo, I hit that first plink, which is not intended. It's a bad note. If you think about it, it's not a harmonic, it's not a note, it's not a bend. It basically means you're not pressing down hard enough, or you're not making contact with the string enough to be able to make a sound. And it's kind of an amateurish move that really should embarrass a player. But when I was playing the solo, it kind of fit the mood. So what I did was, rather than start the solo over again, I just doubled up on it. I did it a second time. Because I read somewhere once, if you make a mistake, just make that same mistake again and people will think you intended to do it. So that's what I did. The second section is a kind of a melodic part with a lot of tremolo bar. And that's the... followed by that fast run. Now, the inspiration behind that, really the inspiration between the whole solo and all those lead sections in the chorus, were my influence from Reeves Gabrels. If you don't know Reeves Gabrels, you will if you keep watching this channel. I will be mentioning him a lot. He is one of my favorite players of all time. He's currently the lead guitar player for the band The Cure. Before that, he was the longest tenured guitar player for David Bowie. He has an extensive solo catalog and stuff he did before Bowie. He's an amazing guitar player, and what's best about him is he's super innovative and he's super unpredictable. So when I was writing these parts, thinking, what would Reeves do? I probably played nothing that Reeves would have played. So Reeves, if you're watching this, hit me up in the comments and let me know if I've even came close. I was trying to play Reeves circa Tin Machine. Tin Machine was the band that David Bowie put together with Soupy Sales' sons. If you don't know Soupy Sales, it's even before my time. He was a TV clown. His sons, Hunt and Tony Sales, who were formerly the rhythm section of Iggy Pop's band. So when David put this band together, he wanted an innovative guitar player. He picked Reeves Gabrels. Reeves decided for that band he wanted to use a different guitar that wasn't popular at the time, and he used Steinberger's. Now, later on, he would change, and it's funny because when I recorded the song that we're talking about, I didn't use a Steinberger. I used a Parker Fly, which is behind me, which is the guitar Reeves used primarily with David Bowie's band. So a little Reeves history. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about him as we go on because, again, he's one of my favorite, most influential guitar players that inspires me to play. So Reeves, again, if you're watching, please let me know, did I even come close to what Reeves might have played? All right, and there you have it. Another episode is in the books. Hopefully you enjoyed that song. I'll put a link in the description to it so you can check it out and listen to it at your own convenience. Again, I wish all the guys in LED the best. I miss you guys. I've moved away. I know they've moved on with their lives as well. But Mike, if you're out there and your voice is ever feeling better and you ever want to work together again and write something, I'm always here, buddy. I love working with you. Remember, if you're a local band, put your band link in the description. Self-promotion is the only promotion these days, unless you're Coheed and Cambria. For some reason, everybody else promoted them for them. They didn't do much promotion themselves, and they made it big. But for the rest of us, we got to self-promote. So go ahead and put the links down in the description so everyone can check you out and we can keep supporting local music. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I need the subscriptions to be able to keep on going. So hit that like, hit that subscribe, and recommend me to a friend or two. Maybe they'll get a kick out of watching. Maybe they'll learn some guitar. Maybe they'll hear some cool music stories. Maybe they'll check out some great music. Until we meet again, wish you have a great week. Talk to you soon, and rock on.